Welcome to the Shields on Hoops podcast. I'm here with Nick Peckham for game number 13 preview. We got Pittsburgh coming to town. Syracuse will also be headed to Pitt in 16, 17 days, similar to last year just playing the Panthers twice in two quick turnarounds. All right, last year Syracuse lost by 2 after a ferocious comeback that we just suffered through watching here before the pod started. And then they went to Pitt and gave up 62 points in the second half to lose that one 99-82. So Syracuse has lost 3 in a row to Pitt and hopefully looking to turn this around. Right now, Vegas has Pitt as a 1-point favorite. Ken Pom has Pitt as I think 2 or 3 point favorite, like 53% chance. So this is a very big opportunity for Syracuse to get a big win. Pitt's a top 50 Ken Pom team. Right now, I think they're 5th or 6th in the ACC as far as rankings go when you look at those things. So really big opportunity for Syracuse to get a quality win at home coming off Christmas because it's going to be a lot tougher to get Pitt at Pitt for sure. Real quick about Pitt, then I'll turn it over to Nick for a little bit. Pittsburgh coming into this, let me pull up my thing here. They currently have the 61st best offense, the 41st best defense. So they're kind of just solid, right? They're kind of solid. They don't do anything super crazy well. They are really good at taking care of the ball. They are really good at defending in general, and they keep teams off the offensive glass. And Syracuse doesn't really send players to the offensive glass, so that's not too much of a worry. And the last thing, they're also pretty good defensively when it comes to defending the three-point line. They're 4th in the country right now. Teams are shooting 25.8% from 3 against Syracuse or against Pittsburgh, which is kind of wild to think. There's been a lot of talk, just got me a little bit of talk lately. I think I posted something a little bit ago, and people I think are talking about how there's no correlation between defense and 3 points. Like it's just one of those rare stats that's just kind of not lucky maybe, but there's only so much you can do to affect it. I don't believe all that because I look at some schools every single year who defend it well. So I think that's kind of a weak way to kind of be like, oh, it's just a rim. No, it's not. It's not, right? Certain teams give up more open threes than others. And there is some luck. I think Syracuse has been lucky this year in the way that teams have missed threes. I'm hoping that continues here in this one. But yeah, so anyway, I digress. That's Pittsburgh in a nutshell. A couple of really good guards, Henson and Carrington, the freshmen. They got some dudes who can play and shoot it. And it'll be an interesting matchup for Syracuse. Pitt hasn't won against a lot of the top teams on their schedule. Took Clemson down to the wire. And they lost to Missouri, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but they've got a couple of losses against the best teams they played, and they've kind of just dominated the lower teams on their schedule. So we'll see what that means. All right. All right, that's a quick rundown. Nick, what you got? What are your first initial overall thoughts on the Panthers, the team that missed out on the Judah Mintz sweepstakes?
Yes. So Pitt this year they kind of play the same style of ball they played last year. I know last year they had a very veteran-oriented team. They had Nelly Cummings and Greg Elliott at their guard positions who, if I recall, I think they were both graduate guys, so they were both fifth-year guys. Nelly Cummings was one of the best point guards in the ACC last year for Pitt. Greg Elliott was one of the best three-point shooters in the ACC, as well as one of the best defenders. So losing those two guys was kind of a big blow to their coming into this year. But their two guards in Leggett and Carrington have definitely improved and kind of taken over those two spots. Those are 2 of their top 3 leading scorers. They're actually neck and neck. Leggett is 13.9 points per game, and Carrington is 13.8. So they're kind of right there. And then obviously Blake Hinson returning. He killed Syracuse last year in both games that they played. He's averaging 20 points per game. And if you don't remember who he is, he's their bigger forward. He shoots threes. He's actually shooting 46% from 3 this season. So averaging 20 points and still shooting 46% from 3 is actually pretty outstanding. I'll get the numbers for you guys in a little bit on how many threes he's taken, just to kind of put that into perspective. But
he's 45 for 98.
Yeah, so shooting 46% on two shy of 100 threes on the season is pretty good. And then obviously they have the two Diaz Graham twins. They play. They're two big mans, as well as what's his name? Federico. I think that's his name.
He's from Sweden.
Yeah, he's back. So it's kind of a unique roster for Pitt. It seems like again, looking at some Ken Pom numbers. Obviously, like we've mentioned, they kind of beat the teams on their schedule they're supposed to beat, and they kind of have lost to the teams that were ranked higher than them. But they get a lot of their points. So 36% of their points are from threes. That's 51st in the country. So kind of seems like they're a team that when they hit their threes, they're hard to beat. And when they don't hit their threes, they're just as easy to beat. So definitely the 3-point line will be a huge part in this game tomorrow. Like Brandon mentioned, they defend the three at a high level. I think what you say, they were fourth in the country at defending the three. And as many know, Syracuse is not a great 3-point shooting team. So this would be one of those games where Syracuse should, from tip, kind of look to get downhill with their guards and then create opportunities for kickouts for Chris Bell and Justin Taylor, and whoever else, maybe Kyle Cuff if he comes in, but kind of get in the flow of things early and get downhill.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see those guys get going, certainly. They have their schedule, the 333rd non-conference schedule in the country. So
one interesting stat on Ken Pom about Pitt is for their average height, they're actually fourth in the country in average height. So that's kind of saying that they have a lot of height at many positions. I'll take a look in a minute on who's kind of above them.
Yeah. I mean, Henson's 6'8", Carrington, the point guard, is 6'5", Leggett is 6'3". I mean, the Diaz twins are 7 foot and 6'11". Federico is 6'11". Zach Austin is 6'7". So they definitely got some dudes with some size.
Yeah, you got Utah, Florida State, and Indiana are the three taller teams right now.
There you go.
And obviously, if you follow ACC basketball, you kind of know Florida State's one of those teams that kind of roll out height at every position year in and year out. I mean, that's where Naheem McLeod came from, was Florida State, and he's 7'4". And their centers just roll out usually every year they have three guys on their roster at the center position who are 7 foot or taller. So they definitely have height. It could be a bad thing for Syracuse rebounding wise, because as you know, outside of Naheem, we don't really play anybody that's over 6. What's Malik, 6'8", 6'9"?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a game where they're definitely going to have to gang rebound and crash the glass, all 5 of them. But it'll be a good test for them. And like we've mentioned, this is kind of a game that Syracuse kind of needs to start off ACC play and go 1-1, get a big one against Pitt at home. They haven't played in 9 days. I think the 21st was the last time they played. So it's definitely a game where you hope Syracuse comes out in front of their home crowd, gets this big win, and then they play again in 3 days at Cameron. So
exactly. I mean, you never want to say must win, but this is one of those games that is one of those swing games, right? Because obviously the ultimate goal here is getting back into the tournament. We all know that. The guys know it. The coaching staff knows that's the goal, right? We got to play one game at a time. However, this is one of those swing games, all right? So when you look at Ken Pom, for example, or any other kind of analytic site, this is one of those games where it's like a 50-55% chance for either team. Those are the ones you got to get. Those are the ones that make the difference between playing in the NCAA tournament and playing in the NIT, right? When you win those games. So if Syracuse can get more of those than not, that's a very good thing, obviously. Some more things about Pitt numbers. Again, 19th at taking care of the ball in the country. So that it's not great. Some of their strengths are not really playing into the hands of Syracuse, right? So turnover percentage on offense, they're 19th, so they take care of the ball really well. They're the 44th.
Syracuse on defense, their main thing is turning you over, so that'll obviously be a key factor as well.
That's gonna be a big one to watch because it is a top 50 defense. So if Syracuse has to play in the half court with again, it just makes sense, right? If you have the 120 some offense and you're playing in the half court all the time because you're not forcing turnovers, then you're playing a top 50 D, almost top 40 D. It's going to be tough sledding. Offensive rebounding, they're 44th in the country, so they go and get offensive rebounds a lot, which again has not been a strength. Syracuse hasn't played a lot of teams who really have been great at offensive rebounding lately, but their numbers as far as keeping teams off the glass have not been good. And I mean it's wild. Teams are shooting 25.8% from three against Pitt. That's crazy. And another thing about Pitt that kind of stands out here, they don't shoot it well from the line, and they block the 14th most shots per game, or like percentage wise. So that's their length, right? They're using that length to block shots and do things like that. So they definitely have a specific kind of style of play. You can kind of see that Coach Capel's trying to make sure happens for them. So when you look at their schedule, right, they have just been smoking the teams that are kind of lower ranked, right? So the 351 North Carolina A&T, they beat by 48. They beat 274 Binghamton by 39. They beat 251 Florida Gulf Coast by 12. They beat 271 Jacksonville by 51. They beat 198 Oregon State by 25. They beat number 129 WVU by 17. They beat 176 Canisius by 11. 335 South Carolina State by 36. And then 147 Purdue Fort Wayne, which is actually a pretty good win, by 14. So they've been just hammering those teams. Their losses are a 15-point loss to number 33 Florida, a 7-point loss to number 92 Missouri, and then a 9-point loss to number 26 Clemson. They were down by 4 with about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go in that one. So again, I think both of these teams, when you look at their schedules and you don't know anything else, if you don't know any other stats, you don't know anything like that, if you look at both these teams, you think, well, I don't know that either. If I was a Pitt fan, right, doing a Pitt podcast and I haven't seen Syracuse play, I'd look at their numbers and be like, I mean, okay, like they beat 222 New Hampshire by 11. They beat Canisius by 12. So do we. They beat Colgate, who's 151 by 4. They got just beat down by Tennessee and Gonzaga. They beat LSU by 23. Okay. Lost to UVA by 22. Like, beat Cornell by 11, beat Georgetown by 12, beat Oregon by 20, but Oregon doesn't have any players, right? Beat 320 Niagara by 12. Right, if you just look at Syracuse's results without knowing anything else, like it's just hard to tell. I think this is going to be I think that's why in Vegas it's like a 1-point game, because I just don't think anybody really knows about either of these two teams right now, which makes it kind of an interesting matchup. I think it's going to be fun. I think it has a lot of fun pieces. I think it has a lot of fun pieces. Like, we haven't beat Pitt in a while. Judah decommitted from Pitt. I'm sure there's still some vibes about that. Henson has owned us, so like I really, this is going to be an interesting nooner.
You also had another guard. You had Dior Johnson commit to Syracuse, decommit, and then kind of go to Pitt. Now that he's not at Pitt anymore, but they've had a couple rivalries in the recent years with guards kind of back and forth. So there's been a little bit of shit talking between like fan bases here and there too, and I can't remember what the deal was. Why were they so mad at Boeheim last year? Because it was the whole thing about, I think he like called out Pitt for, was it buying players or something like that? Like, he got like a lot of their success, quote unquote success, came from the portal and getting buying players to their program and things like that.
And he talked about Miami and I remember it now. Yeah. And they got
three teams. It was Miami, Pitt, and I want to say
Wake, maybe?
Wake, because I thought Steve Forbes was kind of in that mix as well.
Didn't they all get the last laugh? Like, dang. Which I guess you could argue Boeheim was like, see, I'm right.
I mean, I mean, it's the new age of college basketball. So I mean, there's not
And
much to take away from it. But
it's kind of
um,
wild to even compare that to like the landscape of college basketball now. Like even like then, like how drastic it's changed in that one calendar year. It's crazy, man.
yeah. So just some key things that I'm going to point out for tomorrow. I have four of them. Kind of just not your obvious things, but four kind of things to watch for as the game goes on. The first one is obviously we just talked about it, but Syracuse's one strength on defense is turning teams over, and Pitt's strength on offense is taking care of the ball. So turnovers and kind of fast break points go 1-1, obviously. So that's kind of a key thing to look at. Another key thing is the 3-point line, obviously. Um, Syracuse or Pitt defends the 3-point line, the fourth best team in the country, and Pitt loves to shoot threes. So it's kind of one of those games where I know we talk about it all the time, and me and Brandon have discussions off air about this all the time. But it's kind of one of those games where this team coming into the dome. We've seen a lot of good teams shoot threes that come or who have played Syracuse this year that struggle, and nobody really knows why. Truthfully, I know like there's some metrics out there that like Syracuse's luck percentage is pretty high, but like this would be one of those games. Like does Pitt come in and just shoot awful from three, and then obviously that helps Syracuse at the end. So the 3-point line. The second thing we kind of talked off air about this, it's kind of the game within the game. I think one big thing in this game is I kind of mentioned earlier Judah and Leggett kind of going at it at the point guard position, but I'm gonna up my ante there and just kind of say the guard positions for both teams. Obviously, Syracuse has Judah and JJ, and Pitt has Leggett and Carrington, and they're both kind of playing as well as any guard pair in the ACC right now, the two of them. So that'll kind of be an interesting matchup within itself. Obviously, like you mentioned, Leggett is a freshman, and I think Carrington's kind of a younger player as well.
Yeah,
So
he's right.
it'll be interesting to see what kind of pressure that Adrian Autry and the coaching staff kind of throw at these guys. And then the fourth thing, it's not really a key to the game. It's just something that I'm going to watch for. I will be at the game tomorrow, so obviously I'll see it like live. But Syracuse's bench production is what we've seen the last three games. Is that like a fluke to end non-conference play, or is this something that is going to be a strength for Syracuse heading into ACC play? And I think that's going to be a huge thing moving forward.
What do you think?
So personally, I think that they kind of found something with that unit. Obviously, we talk Kyle Cuff, Quadir, Benny, and Malik Brown as those four kind of off the bench. They just seem to play together. They're not really like. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Benny in the first 12 games on our pods. Like a lot of bad, a lot more bad than good so far. But it kind of seems like the last couple games, it's been like guys that don't really care about their own stats. They kind of just play team ball, and that's kind of really worked for them. So I do think this is something that Syracuse can use as the season goes on. It will be interesting to see as the level of competition kind of grows a little bit here. But I will say, obviously, Georgetown's not as good as they used to be or they usually are. But to kind of go into DC and have them play as well as they did when some of our starters didn't play up to their potential was a huge thing. And then obviously at the neutral site against Oregon, even Niagara. But I think it's something that Syracuse can, like I said, can move forward with. Those four guys. Don't change the lineups or anything. Keep everything the way it is. You're already 12 games into the season. Don't kind of keep the flow of everything. But I kind of feel like, in a way, it's the way that the bench is playing is kind of putting some, I won't say pressure, but kind of putting some like little. I'll use the word pressure, but I don't mean pressure like that. But kind of putting some pressure on the guys in front of them, like Chris and Justin have had 2 or 3 very bad games in a row. And now when we can bring guys off the bench like Benny, who played well, or Malik or Quadir, and like put these guys into the lineup and we don't miss a beat, like it's kind of like, all right, it's time for you guys to grow up now as well. So I think that could be a good thing as well for Syracuse, kind of pushing these guys more and more out in front. But that also will be a huge thing to see is how do Chris Bell and Justin Taylor bounce back, because obviously their last 3 games they really haven't played the greatest. I know Justin had some threes late in that Niagara game, like in the second half. He hit a couple. He had 11 points, but that's another huge thing.
Yeah. So all right. I'm gonna talk about some of Pitt's players real quick. Then I have a question for you. Let's see if you can get these or not. All right. So let's talk Pitt personnel. Carlton Carrington, he's a DMV kid. He's a freshman for them. 31.9 minutes a game. 13. I mean, so this is a freshman point guard. 13.8 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 5.3 assists, only 1.8 turnovers. So they run a lot through him. He's been impressive all year. He's better from 2. Got a nice little pull-up game. He's taken the second most amount of threes, but he's only shooting like 31%. So he's a guy who can make them, obviously, but he just hasn't been hitting too much. You got Henson, obviously. He's playing 30 minutes a game, averaging 20. He's 45. He's shooting what's 13 in 98? It's probably 7 or 8 threes a game. He's getting up, right? He's averaging 5.1 boards as well. We know about him. Ishmael Leggett.
I will say before you go, I stand corrected. Leggett is the junior and Carrington is the freshman. I got those 2 mixed up.
Yeah, that's kind of their 3-headed monster. He'll shoot it as well. He's 13 for 42, but he's only at 31%. So they have a couple of guys who are kind of right at that 30, that kind of that Judah, JJ type shooter. I know Judah's numbers are better, although I think they're dropping. I haven't seen them lately, which I called that, by the way, right? I don't know if you remember that. I was like, watch for it'll revert to the mean. So he hasn't been hitting a lot of threes lately after that big game. But he gets to the foul line a decent amount, 89.4%, 6.3 rebounds. So you got a bunch of guys who just kind of rebound and shoot it well enough. It seems like they got a lot of 3-and-D guys, honestly.
They play 9 guys minutes per game so far. 9 guys are averaging at least we'll say 12 minutes a game. So they use their bench, and granted, not a lot of these guys, like it's not like Syracuse's bench has played recently. They use guys to kind of give guys breathers that it's not really a drop off, but they're not as good as the guys coming out. And to mention the 3-point shooting, like outside of Blake Henson, who's shooting a ridiculous 46% so far, and
everybody else.
Diaz Graham, one of the twins, is shooting 37.5%. No, everyone else on this team is kind of 31 and lower. So they definitely can hit threes. They're not consistent shooters. Keeping it. I'm sure Blake Henson is like, if you go to a Syracuse meeting at all this week, he was probably on the top of their whiteboard, circled in every color of the rainbow, and like that was the one thing, because if you let him go off, it opens up everything else for everyone. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like letting Judah go. Zach Austin, he's a redshirt junior. I like his game a lot. I think he can do a lot. I think he's got a chance to be like make a big jump next year. He's at 7.3 points per game, 5.4 rebounds. Only shooting 22% from 3, but he's letting it go. Kind of a physical, athletic type guy who can kind of play different positions. Then you got their foreign guys, right? You got the big guys in the paint for them, the 6'11", 7-foot guys. Federico, Guillermo Diaz-Graham, and then Jorge Diaz-Graham. Those are their kind of big guys with the length, very efficient inside for 2. The Diaz-Graham brothers will shoot it from 3 and pretty decently. I think they're shooting about 37% as a duo. And yeah, I mean, they have a couple other guys that play that kind of round up their lineup, but that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Obviously, keeping Carrington, Henson, and Leggett in check are very important. Those are the kind of 3 guys that we'll be seeing the most.
It will be interesting to see. Obviously, Pitt, like we mentioned, kind of had their way offensively against Syracuse in both games last year. But it will be interesting to see not playing against a 2-3 and kind of playing man, how that differs this year. So that'll be another interesting thing to see as not just this game, but as ACC play goes on. Because I know I don't want to bring up bad memories for anyone, but I know last year we had this 4-game stretch where 4 straight teams played Syracuse, and I think they all hit like 13 or 14 threes against Syracuse, and everybody was like, "Are we ever going to get out of the zone?" and this and that, and like, so it'll be interesting to see what man kind of does. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I was going to say not just for this game, but we're going to really see over the next couple of weeks, what the differences are. And
I mean, it all got capped off when one of the worst teams in college basketball came into the Dome last year and hit 18 or 19 in Georgia Tech, and just kind of they put up 100 on Syracuse.
Yeah, exactly.
So
all right, so I'm on Evan Maya right now, and this is a feature I didn't know existed, but they've got like a top lineup feature. So like most efficient lineup. Let me see how much detail I can get into this. What do you think is the most efficient 2-man combo, offensively and defensive efficiency, that is played together this year? The most efficient two guys on the floor together at the same time would be the most efficient, or like impacted the game the most.
Quadir Copeland and Malik Brown.
Copeland and Taylor.
See, I was gonna. So at first, I thought you were gonna throw me a 5, right? And I was gonna put Quadir, Justin, Malik, and then obviously the 2 guards, JJ and Judah. But
I might need to subscribe to this to get all the good stuff. What's the most efficient 3-man lineup?
Oh,
so I mean, obviously it's going to be Copeland, Taylor, and who else? Who's next?
I'm gonna go JJ.
Nice. Yep. Are you looking?
I'm not. I swear I'm looking at the screen. Actually, if you want me to be honest with you, the screen that's on my computer right now, I was gonna pull up some stats from last year when we played Pitt, and the one thing that's sitting on my screen right now is Syracuse losing the score of 99-82 when we played at Pitt.
Beautiful. All right, so you got Copeland. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
So you got Copeland, Starling, Taylor. Who's your who's the 4th guy that
it's got to be Malik, right?
It's Judah.
Is it Judah?
Yeah, and Malik's the last one. So the most. Now, here's the craziest thing. All right, so Malik, Copeland, Judah, Starling, and Taylor that's the most efficient offensively by far. Like by far. Okay.
And that's crazy, right?
And it's the best defense. It's the best defensive lineup too. And it's only been used 68 times all year, possession-wise.
I could have told you that. I could have definitely told you
That's
that.
wild. That's wild. Quadir and Justin have had 194 possessions together. Quadir, JJ, and Taylor have had 157. Quadir, Judah, Starling, and Taylor have had 87. And then Malik, Quadir, Judah, Starling, Taylor have had 68. So basically, the sub should be Quadir for Bell and Malik for Naheem for the most efficient lineup right now.
It makes sense. I mean, honestly, I know, like after the Niagara game, like we were talking fan questions, and one of them was changing the starting lineup. And one thing that we said was Quadir in for Chris Bell. That was like a thing that we've talked about. But again, don't change your 12 games in. Don't change the lineups. Your bench unit is clicking, and just kind of ride with it. But one thing I will say is, as I'm looking at this poor score that's sitting on my screen right now of when we give up 62 points in the second half to Pitt, in that game, guys that are on the team this year, Benny Williams played 34 minutes. You'll be very impressed. Benny Williams played 34 minutes, had 24 points, 9 rebounds, and was 8 of 15 from the field, 5 of 6 from 3. So, I mean, this was last year, Benny, when he kind of figured it out at the end of the season. So it's a lot different than now. Judah played 36 minutes. He was 6 of 9 from the field. He had 16 points, 6 assists, and 2 rebounds. And then let's see, Justin Taylor played 17 minutes. He didn't score at all. He was 0 of 2. Quadir played 23 minutes. He had 6 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds. Malik Brown only played 6 minutes in that game. He had 1 assist. Let's see who else. And it doesn't look like – oh, wow, Chris Bell didn't touch the floor. Oh, that was the game Chris Bell got benched. Chris Bell did not play at all in that game at Pitt.
Wow.
That I remember that now. That was after he got called out for his rebounding, and nothing ever changed. So Boeheim kind of sent a message.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of it. I mean, obviously, like Benny and Judah had great games. Joe Girard had 19 points, and Jesse Edwards had 17. So like they had 4 dudes. 24, 19, 17, and 16. I mean, they scored 82 points as a team, but they couldn't
stop anybody.
Anything. And if we want to pull up, so team summaries, first half summaries, Syracuse was in it. They were down 4 at half, and then in the second half, Pitt kind of. Oh wait, no, sorry, that was Syracuse. In this game, Blake Hinson had 22. He hits. So Blake Hinson had 22. He was 6 of 17 from 3.
Yeah, he was firing away.
And Greg Elliott was 5 of 11 from 3. They had 6 guys in double figures. In the first half, they were 5 of 21 from 3. They shot 31% from the field. In the second half, they shot 63% from the field, and they were 11 of 20 from 3. So they utterly dominated Syracuse in the second half of that game and ended up blowing them out. So hopefully we put that in our back pocket and kind of some of these guys remember that game and they kind of come out with that little edge. It seems like a lot of games that we lost last year, we've gotten the bounce back this year from. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's going to be, like we said, it's going to be a big game for Syracuse. It's a noon tip, ACC play Saturday. There's a lot going on around Syracuse, obviously. Over at Orange Crate, which is like right down the hill from the Dome, Lawrence Moten and Eric Devendorf will be signing autographs down there before the game. So there's a lot. It's a big game, right? Obviously, people know it's. I hate to say 13 games into the season, like you said. I hate to use the word must win, but like you kind of losing the way you did to Virginia, and then obviously in 3 days having to go to Cameron, it kind of seems like you don't really want to start 0-3 in ACC play. So this is like that big one that you need to steal at your own place.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you're talking that's 0-3 because you're probably not beating Duke on the road. Then you got Boston at home, which is not going to be super easy. Then you're at Carolina, at Pitt. So like, I mean,
and then Miami, right, comes to the Dome.
Yeah, but like that 5-game stretch, I mean, you end up going 1-4 there. You're sitting at 1-5. I mean, come to January 20th with Miami in town. So
and that's tough, especially after starting 9-3 in non-conference play. That's tough. Or 9-2 if you don't count the Virginia game.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I mean, we'll see. We're going to learn a lot. Right now, like I said, Ken Pom has Pitt with a 74-73 win and a 53% chance of winning. This is just one of those games where you want to try. This is like kind of like we talked in the previous pod where you got Duke, Carolina, and Clemson kind of in tier 1, and then you got Pitt right here in that tier 2. Right now, that is going to be a big. I mean, that's a big net win, a big ranking win if Syracuse can find a way to get this one. And you probably you'd probably rather knock this one and not feel like you have to beat them on the road. So. Yeah. We'll
so I got a question for you now. Do you think Syracuse's bench can keep this up, or was just kind of a 3-game? No, you don't.
I think Quadier and Malik can. I don't think Cuff and Benny will keep playing as well. It could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. I love when I'm wrong, but like I don't think
I had to say anything. It'd be Benny. I don't know if Cuff's going to get enough minutes to produce. You know what I mean? It's with JJ and Judah, it's going to be tough.
With JJ starting to play a little bit better, I know he didn't play great against Niagara, but with him starting to play better, that's going to take away a lot of that guard time. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I will
say one thing though. If Chris Bell and Justin start to get hot, I don't
Yeah.
think you may not
They
see
have to
Benny.
play.
You may not see Benny on the floor.
If one of those guys is shooting well, they have to play.
Yeah.
Like they have to.
And obviously, we said it. The last 3 games, it kind of been like the bench kind of came in when the starters weren't playing well. But like ACC play, like you're gonna need these guys to shoot the ball. Like this is what you're on the team for. You are our best 2 shooters. So like they're gonna have to start hitting shots consistently.
And again, the roster is the roster, and whether we like it or anybody listening likes it or not, like those are the 2 best shooters on the team, and they're your best volume shooters. And yeah, it's great seeing the bench come in and do things, but again, like teams aren't going to keep shooting 4 for 25 from 3. All right, teams aren't going to keep like so like yes, the bench has come in and done big things and been very impressive. And I mean, I don't know if they've won us a game or not, but they've definitely like woke up the rest of the team and kind of got things flowing the last couple of games, which have been huge, huge. But I don't know. I mean, I think we'll get like bursts like that at different points of the year. I just can't imagine it becomes a like consistent thing.
I think it's more going to be so like when I say consistency, right? I think it's more going to be when the starter, like it's not going to be an every game thing, right? I think when guys are struggling in the starting lineup, we have the guys that are capable of coming in and keeping things level. Yeah. But like I do think, and I could be totally wrong, but I do think that Chris Bell and Justin start to like slowly get hot and like you ride the wave with that. But like
they're not like they're not Blake Henson, but like they're good enough shooters to where it's going to start going the other way at some point. Like they're not going to shoot the way they're shooting.
So you mentioned earlier, right?
It averages out.
98 threes in 13 games. That's like 7.5 a game. Mm-hmm. Would you be okay if Chris Bell shot 7 threes a game every game?
What is his percentage?
I mean, I won't say 46 like Blake Henson, but we'll say 36, 37.
Oh, hell yeah.
So like that's the kind of player I think Chris Bell can be as a guy. Like I'm not saying Blake Henson because Blake Henson can also take you to the rim and put you in the post and things like that. But
he's a problem.
Kind of volume shooter. That's what Syracuse needs Chris Bell to be.
Yeah, I mean he's at 36.1%. And JT's at 34.7. And I guess Chris is shooting, so he's taking 72, and Ken Palm doesn't count Chaminade games. So 72 points, 72 shots in 12 games. So he's shooting like
11 games. Because you don't count Chaminade.
He's shooting 6. I mean, he is shooting 6 or 7 a game right now. Like,
but there's been games where he shot 10. Like the last game he shot 2. The game before it was 3.
Yeah.
Like
I think 5 or 6 is a good number for him. I think if he's getting 5 or 6 good looks, like maybe even 4 or 5. Like
most of his, and I will say, and we talk about it all the time, but most of his looks are good.
Yeah,
like, there's not many where there's dudes in his face.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for his pull-up game to kind of like get a little bit better, and we've seen flashes of it this year. I mean, again, we don't beat Colgate without Chris Bell.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like we don't
like, blow out.
We're not in the game against Gonzaga either. Like,
well, even the LSU game, like
Tennessee,
LSU hangs around if Chris Bell doesn't hit these threes.
Exactly. Like so, like again, and that's what I guess is a good thing about this team is they got different guys who can come in and do things at different points in the game. And that's the whole point, right? Like that's that again. Like we're just not good enough. Syracuse is just not good enough to just be like, these are our dudes. We're going to roll with them no matter what. The starting five is just not that good. They're not consistent enough yet. They're not grown up enough yet. They don't have that yet. So you got to have, again, and I think what you said was good about, you know, when you asked me that question, I was thinking, when you said keep it up, I was thinking pulling us out of games.
No.
Cutting deficits. And like, but yeah, you know, I do think those lineups can like keep the game level. I think that.
I will say you're probably not gonna see. I mean, maybe one more time during the season, but you're not gonna see Syracuse's bench come in like they did against Oregon down 14-4 and kind of bring them right back in it.
Exactly. That's what I thought you were asking.
But no. Like I'm saying like to where like if dudes come out like let's say we're up 3 and like we sub 3 guys out
like
and bring
a
3
plus
in.
minus of 2 points,
Yeah.
right? Like a plus minus 2 or 3. Yeah, I think at this point, I think they're reliable enough for that. I do. Yeah. And
So
that's a lot.
I'll
That's a lot coming from me because I freaking hated that lineup earlier in the year because it was bad because they were garbage
I
earlier in
know.
the year.
Listen,
Come around.
Oregon, you go back to the day we played Oregon when we went down 14-4 coming out of the timeout, and your tweet was, "Is this really the lineup we're bringing out here?"
Yep, and then Cuff hit somebody. Yeah, whatever. Hey, again, I like to be wrong.
I'll go around the ACC. Obviously, a lot of ACC play starts this weekend. Tomorrow or Saturday, I will say. Obviously, you have Pitt, Syracuse, Virginia, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, which is a big game that we talked about. Those are two teams that are kind of teetering on the could move up, could move down line. And then you got 2 non-conference games. Florida State plays Lipscomb, and Duke plays Queens. And then there's no more ACC games until Tuesday. But obviously Tuesday night you have North Carolina at Pitt, Syracuse at Duke, Wake Forest at BC. Wednesday, Louisville, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, which should be a good one or could be a good one. And then NC State and Notre Dame. And then obviously next weekend you really kind of get into it. But there is one huge game next Saturday. We'll talk about it later. But North Carolina and Clemson play each other at noon on ESPN2. So that's a big game for the top of the ACC.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that Clemson-Miami game. I just don't know about Miami, but yeah.
And then around college basketball, obviously there's just a couple ACC teams playing tonight. Nothing like crazy. Miami beat North Florida by 40, 95-55. Norshad Omier, who we talked about yesterday, he had 27 and 10 on 11 of 12 shooting. Talk about efficiency. But yeah, he had a great game. Clemson pounded Radford. For all you Syracuse fans that weren't big fans of Joe Girard, he was the leading scorer of that game. He had 24 on 8 of 11 shooting.
He's just stat padding.
And then North Carolina's up by 28 right now in the second half against Charleston Southern. So nothing like major in the ACC category tonight. Top 25 tonight. I don't think there's much great games. No.
San Diego State and Gonzaga are playing it tonight. That'll be interesting.
They're actually on right now. I will say I got my daily John Rosenstein tweet. Not a big fan of him. He's a Syracuse hater at the end of the day. But Michigan lost a bye game tonight to McNeese, who's actually coached by Will Wade, who was at LSU. But Michigan is now 6-7 on the season after starting off 3-0. So
I don't hate to see it. Ken Palm actually has Syracuse Pitt as the second most thrilling game tomorrow behind Creighton Marquette. So, and then you got Virginia Tech at Wake at 2:00. So that's going to be interesting. A lot of good stuff this weekend coming up. And we're in the thick of it now, man. It's January.
Yep. Like I said, I'll be at the game tomorrow. I did get tickets delivered to me. I will be sitting courtside at the Syracuse Pitt game tomorrow. Shout out to my guy for getting me some tickets. But let's go, right? I mean, like we said, we hate to say must win this early in the season, but it kind of feels like a big game. So
it's very important. Yeah.
Hopefully after those 9 days off, Syracuse really got after it in practice. And they come out and they get this W.
Yep. Well, that's it from us, guys. We're going to wrap things up here and cut this thing off at 45 minutes. Not too bad. Not too bad for us. Syracuse Pitt, noon tip in the Dome. Big chance for Syracuse to make a semi-statement win. It would be, I think, Red's biggest win so far if they find a way to get this one. Because, again, you can say Oregon, but there's no asterisks, but you know what I mean, right? This is a home ACC game against two teams battling for hopefully tournament spots. So That's it from us. You guys enjoy the game, and we will see you guys on the other side. Take it easy.